Welcome to Yell, Fight, Sooie, college football from three friendly-ish rivals.
Time is a flat circle, but it is March 24th. This is Yell, Fight, Sooie. Welcome once again, three friendly-ish rivals talking about all things Texas, Arkansas, and Texas A&M, not necessarily in that order. With us today is, as always, Scott McIntyre.
Hi.
And rocking his Texas baseball jersey, even though his team has a Sweet 16 matchup tonight, James Christopher.
Yeah, well, conference play starts too. It's a big night. Conference play, and then there's, I guess, a basketball. No, seriously, Sweet 16, very excited. Sweet 16 and never been kissed. I think it's the saying, but I don't get it.
Is that the saying?
I've heard things. No, exciting. I tell you what, my favorite part of this tournament has been, though, is Jimmy Kimmel doing his whole "Does Gonzaga really exist?" a bit, because that's actually been hilarious. And if you haven't seen it, highly recommend checking it out.
I mean,
like to hear what Eric Mertens has to say about that.
Yeah, I think our friend Eric would have some issues.
Yeah.
Anyway, he lives in the middle of Washington, so who knows? So we started talking about March Madness. I guess we'll start with Jim. Rodney Terry. Since the rest of us don't have anything to talk about right now, Rodney Terry, your interim basketball coach, has led a team that lost their coach mid-season to a Sweet 16 berth with a chance to, I think if they win today, they have a chance to be in the Final Four in Houston pretty easily, and that's a decided home field advantage. What's the feeling in Austin right now about this basketball team?
Well, I think everybody's I think everybody wants to have him be the head coach. And I think we all know how sometimes that doesn't always carry over from season to season. Sometimes you have a thing happens, the momentum happens, but then the next year doesn't necessarily pan out. Cody Carlson is the quarterback of the Oilers for one. No, look, I think people are excited.
We have to mark off the Cody Carlson reference.
Yeah, we do. Yeah. It's funny because Tennessee lost. So, Rick Barnes takes another UT and underperforms in the tournament. So there's that. But no, people are excited. People are fired up. It's still not a basketball town, but I think people are just excited to see the team actually meet some degree of expectations, particularly under the situation that they're in, with it being an interim coach. And they seem like they're finding different players every game to be the star, and that's kind of neat.
Yeah, I think you also have to take a look at Rodney Terry. I mean, Rodney Terry has just a terrible situation to step into, and it's not like he's been a lifelong assistant to Chris Beard, too. It's not like their ideas are married, and so he knows everything that Coach Beard, and he can just be that guru that steps in.
Well, nobody wants to be close to married to Coach Beard, as it turns out.
Well, except for his fiance, she still wants to be around him for some reason. But
some reason, a few million reasons. I can think of a few million reasons she wants to be around him.
A few million, yeah. And Oxford, Mississippi looks great this time of year. But I think that Rodney Terry, his past experience, I mean, he was successful at Fresno State as their head coach. So he's got that background. It's just he tried to take on the UTEP job, and UTEP, I think when he took over, they were horrible, and they only won 8 games his first year. They had a decent second year. They weren't getting off well to the third year, and they canned him because it's UTEP. It's that basketball powerhouse of UTEP. And now so he gets an assistant job with Chris Beard. All this stuff goes down. And now he's done a really good job with at UT. So I think just an incredible job. If you think about what that team went through around Christmas and trying to hold the guys together and convince them, hey, we're going to be okay. We're really talented. Let's stay the course. Forget what Coach did. Forget that he's not part of this anymore. Let's go. So I think, number one, kudos to Coach Terry for holding it together. Kudos to the players for buying in. And kudos to the administration for making a quick, swift decision when they had to.
Yeah.
After Chris Beard was a knucklehead. And yeah, you won't hear me say great things about Burnt Orange land very often, but right now I do. I mean, I've got to tip my cap and say, well done, guys, and how you've held your basketball season together.
Yeah, I would agree with that. There are very few things in college sports that make the collective go, oh, like somebody dropped a tray in the cafeteria. that this was a thing that made college sports go, what the hell's going on? And I again, don't want to say great things about the University of Texas athletic department, but they did the right thing and it's paying off for them. And it's going to pay off tonight, hopefully for Jim, with a matchup against Ohio's Xavier University.
Yeah, and I've done a lot of research into this game, and
I feel like you haven't, and that's okay.
Xavier's ranked lower.
You know they are the Ohio Xavier, not the Louisiana Xavier, right? And certainly not the mutant Xavier.
I'm about to say, as long as it's not Professor Xavier, I feel like we're doing.
This is not Xavier
What was
Academy.
really funny?
And now we preview our new show and coming this summer, Fanboy 75. So
I'm just glad Jim has figured out over the last couple of days that Xavier does not start with an EKS. It's spelled with an X. It's like, no, Xavier. I understand how it phonetically sounds.
Yeah.
But trust me on the X.
No, but look, I'll be honest. I watched, I'll be honest. I probably watched as much of this tournament that I did the World Baseball Classic. And I will admit to saying that, yeah, like for as much I don't really understand basketball and all that stuff, it definitely is exciting, particularly at the college level, particularly when the game gets close and things are back and forth. And the Gonzaga win yesterday and what Miami's done. It's exciting. I get it.
Most of the time I would recommend, if you're not a big basketball fan, starting watching it the second half and really focusing on the last 10 minutes. Unless, of course, you are Arkansas last night. Scott, how'd the game go?
Oh, it was fantastic. The Blues went up to Detroit after the Tuesday night game, and it was a disappointing shootout loss to the Red Wings. And then we had the back-to-back last night and went up to Detroit and won 4-3. And Joel Hofer, the 22-year-old rookie goalie, is just giving this team a really good glimpse into the future.
Sorry, point of order, not that game.
Y'all
played a basketball game against UConn last night.
Kudos to Kansas State for going in and knocking off such a tough team like
Michigan State. Different part of the bracket.
Sorry, buddy.
I don't know. So the Arkansas LSU baseball series has moved up the first pitch.
We're going to talk about that in a minute.
There's bad weather coming into Baton Rouge. They want to avoid that. Look, man, I'm going to tell you, Arkansas went in that second game of the first round and knocked off Kansas and just left it all on the court. Devo Davis, who's been through such an emotional roller coaster ride this year, getting positively called up by Charles Barkley was amazing. And knocking off Kansas, sending them home. And think about where I live for a minute, guys. We beat Illinois in game 1. We beat Kansas in game 2. And Missouri lost to Princeton. This boy was standing in great standing from Sunday evening until Thursday afternoon. There was supposed to be a basketball game last night where Arkansas played UConn. I saw UConn on the court. I saw what looked to be Arkansas jerseys, but it looked nothing like the Arkansas Razorback team I know of. So I'm really upset about the kidnapping that happened to our players. I hope that they get to
Scott, I thought you were going to pivot to the Fighting Hoyt Richardses of Princeton to see how they have.
We could. The Fighting Hoyt Richards of Princeton. I mean, they should no longer be the Tigers. The Princeton Richards. It sounds better for multiple reasons. But no, look, Cinderella's shoe fell off, man. What do I say? UConn's.
I think it's fair. I think it's fair to say that
basketball season together with baling wire, baling tape, chicken wire, and duct tape. Sweet 16 in a year we barely make the tournament, and people are saying, "Oh, we're having a down year." Yeah, great. Mike Anderson isn't our coach anymore. We make the Sweet 16 in a down year. He gets fired for cause from St. John's. Take care. Drive home safely.
I'm on the Home Depot site looking for baling tape, so just give me a second.
Baling wire.
They don't have it.
Wire.
Your imposter team, whoever wore Arkansas uniforms, lost by 3 touchdowns and a safety last night to UConn. So I agree.
Just so you know, Andy, that's what we call the second round of the tournament, or the second weekend of the tournament. Maybe you can join us next year.
I fully understand, and people who don't follow college basketball, losing in the Sweet 16 is not, there's no shame in it. You make it to the second weekend of the tournament. That is a good season by any stretch of the imagination, because it does at some point become a little bit of a crapshoot and matchup heavy independent after that. Having said that, Arkansas had a great run last weekend. This weekend, not so much.
Not so much. Yeah, I think it was the altitude changed going to Vegas. That had to be it. That's the lights are bright, things like that. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that happened. But you're right. Sweet 16 is unheralded air. It's great to be there with quality teams like Texas and Florida Atlantic and Princeton.
Hey, speaking of which, I know
what
a big fan you are of the Tenors. They lost embarrassingly so to Florida Atlantic, the Owls, the Fighting Owls of East Coast Florida, I guess.
Yeah, so stuck on that old Rocky Top.
All right, enough of the chick ball stuff. Spring camp has started for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
No, football.
Let's go ahead and start with Scott since he's on a roll anyway. What's going on in Arkansas?
Oh, up here in Arkansas, we got a lot of changes coming to the football team this year. We got a lot of things happening. We're just working on,
doing north.
doing some different things going on. Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's right. I'm not going to call it.
I still am more understandable than Coach Ogeron. I just want to say that when I do that, you can still understand my words better.
And no, you have 1% of his income.
Well, not currently, but I mean, what he used to make. I think that it's an interesting year coming up with new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator, long-standing quarterback in house, a running back core that looks like seriously, if I look at our running backs and I look at them against the rest of the conference, and I'm like, if they ran a Kentucky Derby for running backs, I would feel like we had 4 guys that could win that Derby. I mean, really good at running back. Tight end wide receiver is going to be a bit of a question, and they're plugging holes on the offensive line. And the defense, honest to God, who knows, because they're running a completely different scheme. They will have 4 down linemen. I know that much. Beyond that, we'll see. But it can't get much worse than things got in the final year under Barry Odom. There's depth at the quarterback position behind KJ Jefferson, which is a great thing because when you play big boy ball in the SEC, you're probably going to get hurt at some point in time. You just hope it doesn't last long. I think Arkansas is in a really good situation to bounce back from a 6-6 year last year. The schedule gets a little bit easier as well. Remember, last year every team we played had been in the postseason the year before. So I would think Arkansas fans are probably going to expect an 8 or 9 win season, but 7 will be solid. And it's that last year. It's that last year before Texas and Oklahoma come and the schedule gets nuts. But I can speak for everybody in Arkansas and say that we're perfectly fine with not playing Alabama every year. That'll be fine.
Jim, what's going on the 40 acres?
Well, I think everything right now is going to be looked through the lens of how Sarkisian. We talked a little bit about this week too. How Sarkisian is using the media to kind of, I think, push and maybe test yours. Last week it was, will Arch Manning take him? Now all the talk has been about Malik Murphy, the 4-star kid out of California who's finally healthy, who's apparently having a really good spring, whatever that means, right? Everybody's always having a good spring. Has there ever been a team that's been like, our spring's been pretty shitty, honestly? Like, I don't even know.
Arkansas under Chad Morris, actually.
Okay, fair. So, but I think that's been it. It's been the continuing of, Sark had a quote about, could Malik push Quinn? And he said, sure. And the challenging of Quinn Ewers to get better, to become, I think, the player they all think he's supposed to be. It's also been about getting guys back healthy. There's a transfer wide receiver out of Wyoming, which I thought, first of all, interesting that we got a transfer from Wyoming, who's back healthy and should be a nice threat in the inside for Texas. So I think it's all about health. It's weird though, Andy, for this to be a spring different than what we've had in a lot of years, because it feels a lot less uncertain than previous years, despite the quarterback conversation and all of that. It does feel like all of a sudden there's a progression of things, and it's not, should we move Tyrone Swoops to tight end?
I mean, who doesn't want an 18-wheeler package?
Tyrone Swoops was so sweet too. He was the nicest kid, and that's exactly why he probably wasn't the greatest football player.
Well, it's I think it's the unfair part of playing for a school like the University of Texas, because Tyrone Swoops was a probably a little bit overranked from a recruiting standpoint when he came in. If you look at what he did, I think he was at Whitewater, 2A school, very small school in Texas. His senior year, they went 2-10. Now, there's a lot that goes into a high school football record. You might not have wide receivers. Your offensive line might suck. But if you are a 5-star quarterback and you're, what was he, 6'5", you should probably have better stats than he was able to put up his senior year.
Right.
And so a lot of my fan base is picking on him was that there's no way this guy is a 5-star, but you have Bobby Burton and Ketch and those guys going, oh no, 5-star because Texas signed him. I think Charlie Strong even said something like that. Like, I offered a couple guys just to watch their star ratings go up. So we sit over here going, you know, what that's all about. I think you guys are in a good spot in the Big 12 because I think the Big 12, I expect Baylor to rebound a little bit. TCU is going to be much worse, I think, than they were this year.
I think OU still in the wilderness.
I don't expect Oklahoma to be as bad, but I don't think they're going to be great. So I think, you know, as you have demonstrated in your history, you have a pretty good history of winning the last title in a conference before you leave.
That's true.
So,
and usually the first year of the title of the new conference when we get there. So watch out,
that might
Alabama.
be a different story.
Watch out, baby. Watch out, Georgia.
That one will be impressive because Cincinnati and BYU and UCF will no longer be on the schedule.
And U of H. Big time.
Let's go university. But Andy, what about Aggie Land? How's everything going down there?
It's a shit show, and let me tell you why. Here's what we should be looking at as Aggie fans. We should be saying, hey, DJ Durkin's coming to his second year as defensive coordinator. His scheme is going to be in place. The guys are going to know what they're doing. And from a two-deep standpoint, he has all the talent in the world. So we have 22 guys that can play Division I football at a high level playing defense for our team. We're probably a little bit weak at linebacker from a depth perspective. That's probably our hole in the defense. Maybe some experience in the secondary if you really want to get into it. But we should be excited that Bobby Petrino is coming in to run the offense. What we're focused on this week is that Jimbo Fisher was grumpy during his press conference and didn't say, yes, Bobby Petrino is my play caller. What he actually said, and I want to hear your guys. I'm going to just read the quote with no emotion.
Okay.
And I want to know what you take from these words because that's what we have to go on. Jimbo Fisher asked who would make the offensive play calls after hiring offensive coordinator Bobby Petrino. Jimbo's answer is, we'll go through that as we go. Plan on him making calls, plan on him calling plays. I have no problem with that at all. Is anything in there make you think that Jimbo doesn't want Bobby Petrino calling plays and that he's going to meddle?
No.
Honestly, there's a little bit of a non-committal in his statement.
You think so?
How does he need to be?
I think he needs to say yeah. And he said yeah. He
said yeah.
He didn't say yes. He didn't say yes.
I think it was no. He said yeah. I think it's the beginning part that maybe throws people off, and we'll see how it goes. But
when the biggest problem. Okay, hang on. When the biggest problem has been, hey, dude, we don't want you calling plays anymore, and you go hire this guy, and then you're asked, are you going to be calling plays? You're like, well, we'll see how that goes. But I mean, he's going to be doing it, but you know, see how it goes.
Counterpoint.
That's not a commitment. I'm sorry.
He might be exasperated from when they introduced Bobby Petrino and he said he's calling plays and he's still getting asked questions about it. So it's kind of like you're feeding a narrative that the press wants to be there that isn't necessarily there. And if I'm Jimbo Fisher, yeah, I'm grumpy. Yes, I don't like talking to the press anyway, but this smacks of the kind of bullshit that I do with my wife. Because when I asked her to marry me, she said, sure. And I said, that's not a yes.
Welcome to
it's kind of non-committal when I'm standing here on the steps of the state capitol, kneeling, handing you a ring, and you say, sure.
Oh my God, you proposed at the state capitol?
I did. She said, of course. And of course is not a yes.
No, it's not. But that was me and Jessica's first date. I love that. Our first date was the capitol.
Well, get to know me.
Hey,
but that's what we're love line, on. Baby. We're focused on Jimbo Fisher's body language instead of anything that's going on the field. You add to that the fact that I think it was revealed right after our call last time or our show 2 weeks ago that our scrimmage, because of construction to the south end zone, is only going to be on half a field, our spring game. And everybody's just grumpy to be grumpy, and you get to be grumpy when you have a 5-7 season, and you were supposed to be much better than that. So that's where we are. We're going to be grumpy up until there's a game that we win by 50 points.
Hey, you guys are going to be fine, though. I mean, seriously, you've got the talent in place. The coaching staff. You're going to be fine. You're going to absolutely be fine.
I will say the greatest thing that Texags ever invented was this idea. I get some news from there, but they have a button at the very top that's staff only. So I get to just eliminate anybody who's not writing professionally.
Wow.
So I don't have to see the comments. And I've been riding that since after the LSU game.
Well, but I guess my other thing back to Jimbo is, I don't imagine Jimbo is going to be calling plays in game. Like, I think he's smart enough to understand that that didn't work. But you definitely still want him involved in the offense because that's why you hired him in the first place.
Yeah, like, I'll tell you what this kind of reminds me of. So Houston Nutt's last couple of years in Arkansas was the same thing. People didn't want him calling plays. He hired in Gus Malzahn. That was oil and water and lasted one season and was absolutely a terrible, terrible coaching situation inside the locker room. I don't think you're going through that, but I've been part of a fan base whose head coach was calling plays and shouldn't have been. But Houston Nutt got petty. Like later on in the year, we won a game, and he's telling his first words to the guy interviewing were, "I called that play, and it was a good play call, Chuck." I mean, that was the petty sort of crap that we saw. So maybe I'm thinking about that a little bit as I think about Jimbo Fisher trying to get away from play calling and how badly you just want to hear him say, "No, Bobby Petrino's calling the plays, but yes, I'm the head coach. I'm going to vet what we're doing, and I mean, it's got to come through me."
I'll tell you,
we're a fan base filled with dread right now. That's what's going on from a football standpoint.
Because you were given,
but I'll tell you though,
at the beginning of last year.
I'll tell you though, on the 40 acres though, when Herman first got hired, part of the irritation there was he seemed too hands off on the offense. Because again, you were hired because you're bringing in an offense. We had just had Charlie Strong, which was defensive minded, which meant, and so I do think to your point, Andy, it doesn't matter what he says, and he can say anything. People are going to be upset.
And that's where we are. Let's switch gears real quick because we've got a few minutes left. Baseball season is in the middle. I know Jim is wearing his jersey again because they're starting conference play. I'll open up with A&M so we can stop talking about it. Scott, good luck this weekend against LSU because I watched all 3 of those games against A&M. And while A&M certainly handed them some gifts in the form of a lot of walks, a lot of base on balls type situations, LSU is at a different level than any baseball team I have seen in probably the last 5 years.
Yeah.
They're good from top to bottom. The Friday starter you're going to face tonight is, if he's not a first round draft pick of the MLB, whenever he's eligible, I will be amazed. Thank God he got out of his Air Force commitment because Lord knows we don't need pilots. But just that they are a class above. We take on Tennessee. We're going to Knoxville this weekend. I fully expect us to take 2 of 3 because I think we're better than we showed against LSU. It was big for us from a momentum standpoint to take the Sunday game after the way we lost.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it's life is never easy in the SEC. And one of the fun things is that if you can manage to be a 500 team in the SEC, you still have a good shot of being a regional host. So nothing bad in College Station right now. We just need to get our bats going.
Yeah, I guess the good news for us, I touched on it earlier. The first pitch today has been moved up to noon because of bad weather. So hopefully Friday noon start takes the crowd out of it, takes a little home field advantage away from LSU, which I'll take anything we can get going down there. They're a great baseball team, number 1 in the country for a reason. But hey, your friendly Arkansas Razorbacks are number 5 in the country for a reason as well, because we swept Auburn, whose day 2 starter's last name is Crotchfelt. I just got to say that. I just have to say it. I sent you guys the picture. Guy's last name is Crotchfelt, which I don't fault him for that. You don't, but where did that name originate? I really want to know that story.
The Crotchfelt region of Budapest.
Right. If you get a guy, their last name's Smith. Oh, well, he worked with metal. They were a blacksmith. But, this is Crotchfelt. Well, please to God, don't tell me what his great grandfather.
Maybe they just made Merkins.
It could be it. That could be it. They hunted beavers. in like the Old West or something, fur trappers, not hunting beef. Never mind. But I think that Arkansas stands more than a puncher's chance down there. We did sweep Auburn in first weekend. I know they're not great, but they are an SEC team that's solid. We're pretty solid up and down through the lineup, play good defense. And I think we got enough pitching to give them a decent scare. Look, leaving Baton Rouge with 1 win is going to be fine. Leaving 2 is going to feel like you won the lottery.
Yeah.
So I'll take what we get.
I mean, I don't baseball's baseball, but I will tell you again, they are the most impressive team in they play defense well, which they didn't do last year. They are hitting lights out 1 through 9, and their pitching's outside of their Sunday starters pretty damn solid. So good luck to you. Jim, your conference openers this weekend.
Well, I want to say one thing
about Texas looking going into that.
I want to say one thing about, they still haven't lost since we've had our last episode. And of course, that means nothing because of I won't say it means nothing because it's baseball, but they've definitely seemed to be on a roll. They seem to, again, continue to be finding spots for people, figuring out people's roles. A couple of things I'll say about Texas Tech is I want to do a shout out to one of my former students who's on the football team who pulled a hamstring, and he just got moved up the depth chart. Then he pulled a hamstring, but we're hoping he gets back going. Most importantly, what I'm going to talk about is the Tuesday game with A&M. And I want to remind everybody, Andy, that one single baseball game in the middle of the week doesn't mean a thing, because we know it's going to happen as soon as the last outs for our teams on Sunday.
So not talking smack, but Texas, even though it's only been 1 game a season outside of the World Series last year, hasn't fared well against Texas in the last 7 or 8 years. I think,
except for in the World Series.
Well, last year we eliminated you guys from the World Series. The time we met in the college playoffs before that, you eliminated us. But these Tuesday games that we've been playing sporadically, we've had an advantage from a win-loss standpoint for the last several years. Does it matter more because of that? Does it matter more knowing that you're about to be a conference foe again? Or is it just another Tuesday game and the end of the outcome, whatever it is, isn't going to matter outside of somebody either throwing horns down or somebody chanting "Poor Aggies"?
I think it's the latter. I think that both teams do not approach a Tuesday game like if we were playing Sam Houston State. I think that they should still approach the Tuesday game the way you approach a Tuesday game if you are a top flight program. I cannot imagine Texas throwing its Friday starters so we can get a win in college.
So you're not going to be like Rice and throw your Friday starter on Tuesday.
Well, no, I think I would be very disappointed. I'm not even going to mention like how disappointed I'd be if they did it, because they're not going to.
Yeah, I think one thing you got to also think about, guys, is you don't know what the weekend series ahead is about to look like, right? I mean, you got Tennessee and Texas Tech, both are very capable programs. If you have to go deep into your bullpen all weekend, I mean, if both of you do that, then there's going to be some guy who's 6'1", 125 pounds, freshman from someplace with 4 syllables and X in it. Who knows what you're going to run into. You can't put value into a Tuesday game. It's, if you win, great. It's a little help on the RPI, may get you something for a regional, but everybody should be going to the postseason this year anyway. So I don't think this game's anything like a make or break. No way.
Well,
no, Tuesday games are not a make or break. And
no way. Ever.
The same group that overreacts when Texas A&M loses to Lamar or Texas loses to Texas State is the same group who's going to overreact to whatever happens on Tuesday between our two programs.
Fair. And the same group that will, go crazy if Texas football has a close game to Cincinnati and A&M has a, close one with Vanderbilt or whoever you play this year. I mean, calm down, folks. A win's a win.
Absolutely. On that note, we're going to go ahead and wrap up for Y'all Fight Sooie. Good golf, good tennis, or whatever makes you happy. You're welcome, Marvin Zindler. That's James Christopher. That's Scott McIntyre. I'm Andy Tom Chesson. And have a great weekend. Go Horns in your little basketball game.
And there's slime in the ice machine.